Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I am Sergeant First Class Elena Davis, NCOIC for the Defense Center for Public Health Aberdeen Laboratory Sciences Directorate. I am pleased to serve as your narrator for today's ceremony on behalf of Colonel Justin Slancer, Director of Defense Centers for Public Health Aberdeen, the host organization for today's event, and Major General Robert Edmondson, Senior Commander, Aberdeen Proving Ground. It is my privilege to welcome you to the Aberdeen Proving Ground Holocaust Days of Remembrance Observance. Our observance today is a solemn program for us to reflect on the horrible atrocities of the Holocaust and inspire us to commit as individuals and groups to work together to stand against injustices. Military guests are reminded that this is an indoor ceremony. No covers are required and no salutes will be rendered. When the national anthem is heard, it is customary for military members to simply stand at attention and for others present to stand facing the flags with their right hands over their hearts. At this time, we ask you to please stand for the singing of the national anthem by Staff Sergeant Bernard Jimenez and to remain standing for our invocation by Chaplain J. Kim.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Shall we pray? Almighty God, we gather together to reflect on how freedom is fragile and vulnerable to abuse. Help us pledge not to take our freedoms for granted and consider what we can do to strengthen freedoms all over the world. Lord, give us the wisdom to discern between true liberation through your word and false freedom, which misleads people into persecution and death. Help us, O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to commit ourselves to ensuring that no winds of Holocaust will ever again blow across Israel or any part of the world. Make us instruments of your peace, we pray, and hasten the day when the ancient vision of Shalom, the kingdom of righteousness and peace, will be established in the hearts and communities of all people. Bless all the people who gathered here today and connected on Teams. In your most holy name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain J. Kim. Please be seated. At this time, we welcome Mr. Michael Krylon, Deputy to the Garrison Commander, USAG Aberdeen Proving Ground, Colonel Justin Slancer, Director, Defense Centers for Public Health, Aberdeen, Mr. Erwin Varconi, Jewish Community Relations Council, and our guest speaker, Mr. Isak Danon, and his son Josh. And to the rest of the family, friends, community leaders, general officers, members of the senior executive service, military members, active and retired, industry partners, and our great civilian workforce joining us virtually and in person. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to attend today's observance. The video we will now see reflects the Department of Defense 2024 Days of Remembrance theme. Behind every name, a story, the courageous.
Each year, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum leads the nation in commemorating Days of Remembrance. The Observance was established by the U.S. Congress to honor the lives of 6 million Jewish victims, as well as the millions of others killed and the heroic liberators of the Holocaust. The occasion calls for reflection on and vigilance against hatred and genocide. During Days of Remembrance, we honor those who have dedicated themselves to fighting injustice and preserving the dignity of humanity. Among the remarkable individuals remembered is Adolfo Kaminsky, the master forger, whose remarkable skills saved countless lives during some of history's darkest moments. Adolfo Kaminsky's story is one of courage and ingenuity. As a Jewish teenager living in Nazi-occupied France during World War II, Kaminsky was faced with the horrors of persecution. Despite the risk, he chose to resist the tyranny surrounding him by utilizing his talent as a forger. With meticulous precision, he mastered the production of letterheads, watermarks, and rubber stamps, used for the crafting of counterfeit documents, which allowed countless individuals to evade capture, deportation, and certain death. His selfless actions served as a poignant reminder of the power of compassion and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. During Days of Remembrance, we honor Adolfo Kaminsky's legacy and the countless unsung heroes who, like him, risk everything to stand against oppression. Their stories serve as a beacon of hope and inspiration, reminding us of our shared responsibility to uphold the values of compassion, equality, and justice for all.
Please join me in welcoming Mr. Michael Krylon, Deputy to the Garrison Commander, USAG Aberdeen Proving Ground, who will introduce our guest speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Installation Senior Commander, Major General Robert Edmondson, and the APG Garrison Commander, Colonel Philip Munweil, I would like to thank Colonel Justin Schlanzer, the Director of the Defense Centers for Public Health, Aberdeen, for hosting today's observance. We are here to bring a renewed awareness of the Holocaust. We mourn the loss of so many lives and honor those who survived. This Remembrance Day ensures the world never forgets that more than 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, and 1.5 million of those killed were children. The Nazi regime's brutal tactics throughout Europe ultimately led to the deaths of nearly 2 out of every 3 European Jews. Tactics that included the rounding up of Jews in ghettos with horrible and deadly living conditions, brutal mistreatment, mass shootings, and specially designed killing centers. Anyone who has seen the images of those horrors can never forget them. And today's ceremony is how we honor those who suffered and vow never to forget. The state-sponsored systematic persecution of European Jews was an evolving process by the Nazi German regime and its allies and collaborators. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum defines the years of the Holocaust as 1993 to 1945, beginning when Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party came to power in Germany, and ending in May 1945 when the Allied powers defeated Nazi Germany. It is our moral imperative that we remember and talk about what happened as we continue to strive to make our world a better place and push back against discrimination and hatred. As we remember those murdered, honor the survivors, pay tribute to the rescuers, and celebrate the liberators during the days of remembrance, we are reminded why it is imperative to confront anti-Semitism and other forms of hate-based conduct, and we are inspired to build a better future for all. Remembering the victims and memorializing the survivors' stories is our moral responsibility. The DoD theme for this year's Holocaust observance is "Behind Every Name, a Story, the Courageous." Today, behind the name of Isak Danon, our honored and courageous guest speaker, we will hear about firsthand about surviving the Holocaust. And we're also honored today by having Isak's son, Josh, join us for this ceremony. Thank you, Josh, for being here. Mr. Danon was a guest speaker years ago for our Aberdeen Proving Ground workforce and high school students, and we are pleased he is here with us again today at 95 years young. We look forward to hearing about his family's survival and his dedication to our great nation, serving in the active Army for 2 years and 6 years in reserve duty. Mr. Danon is truly a member of our federal community, serving 34 years as a civilian employee with the Army Audit and Interior Audit agencies. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Mr. Isak Danon.
Man.
Yeah, just sit here.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Just 1 or 2 household items. I'm wearing a hat that says Veterans of the Navy. That's all wrong. I was in the Army for 2 years active and 6 more years inactive. And I was stationed overseas during the Korean War. I have a honorable discharge to show you if you want to see it. Second item is we are observing today the Holocaust Memorial Day. What does the word Holocaust mean? Anyway, it's a Greek word for a great big flame just shooting up to the sky and no way to put it out, just continuing burning. And that's what Europe was like for the Jewish people when Hitler took over. When he took over, I was about 6 years old. I was born in Yugoslavia. Split was the city on the Adriatic. Anyway, Hitler took over Germany and he made himself a dictator, as you heard. And he had two objectives. One was to conquer first Europe and with his allies, Italy and Japan, to conquer the rest of the world. And second objective was to destroy all Jewish life on this on the not only continent but in the world. For some reason, he blamed the Jews for everything, for his loss of the First World War, for the bad economic situation that Germany was in, for the unemployment, everything he blamed the Jews. So he was gonna eliminate them from the face of the earth. Okay. When I became 6 years old, I realized what was going on in Germany and every other country that Hitler had occupied. Again, first he would attack the Jewish establishments, and the Jewish people on the street would be attacked by the German Nazi mobs or hoodlums or whatever one can call them. And Hitler had almost succeeded in creating a big Holocaust and destroying all Jewish life. In Europe, there were 7.5 million Jewish people. At the end of the war, when the Allies liberated Europe, there was only about 1 million left. And you saw what these people that were still around, you saw what they looked like. 60, 70 pounds weight, just on the border of starvation. Anyway, at the time, I just knew that Hitler was conquering one country after another. When I was 11 years old, Hitler had taken almost all of Europe, and I knew that our turn was next, our turn meaning Yugoslavia. And sure enough, on April 6th, 1941, I was awakened by explosions. We wondered what it was. I ran out in the street, looked up in the sky, and saw airplanes. Maybe they were dropping bombs. At that point, they were just leaving. So that's how war came to us. I'm gonna be trying to talk only about myself, how I and my family were able to escape the quote Holocaust. Nothing happened for a few days in our city. Then maybe about 5, 6 days later, we saw the Italian military police floating around the city in groups of 3 or 5 with their rifles. And they weren't talking to anybody or disturbing anybody, but they were putting up posters telling the population what to do and what they were not allowed to do. And first thing to do that they had to do, it was turn in all weapons that anybody had, private relics, hunting guns, anything that goes boom, they had to turn it in. At the bottom, it says, you are now part of Italy, and non-compliance with above will result in very serious consequences. Okay, peop some people turn in their weapons. I don't know who did. We didn't have any. Next thing, they started picking on the Jewish population. First, we had to register. They gave us ID cards, but they stamped with the big red letters across. They stamped Italian word for Jewish. It didn't mean anything at that point until we tried to buy food in the stores. Well, many stores had food, lines would form, people would come, buy food, but if we were in line, they would say, we're sorry, can't sell you. Maybe if you wait until everybody else gets their supply, even though we had food coupons. And they told us we were not allowed to walk on the main streets. All of the Jewish employees of the state and local government were fired. The Jewish kids could not attend school. Doctors were fired from the hospitals, doctors, nurses, corpsmen, whoever. And the same thing happened in schools. The professors and teachers were fired, and we were not allowed to go anywhere where other people congregated. A movie theater, playground, soccer matches, even the beach. And it was beginning of summer, everybody went to the beach, but we were not allowed. Well, we followed those instructions, and we were afraid because Germans, how they behave toward the Jews in other countries. So we were afraid what might happen. And then little by little, we started saying, well, what can they do to me? If I go to the beach, they can send me home. Yeah. So we started being more liberal, to say, to have no other word for it. And for schools, the Jewish kids could not attend, but Jewish community set up a private school. They hired the professors and the teachers to teach the kids. And unfortunately, my father couldn't let me go to school because he needed me in his place of business. So life continued uneventful. Pretty soon, I became almost 13 years old. And many of you know, some might not know, in Jewish religion, when a young boy becomes 13, that's a big event, big lifetime event. It's a lot of parties and, celebrations and all that. And now it's done both for boys and girls. We have equality of sexes, but in those days, just the boys. So my father took me to the synagogue and talked to the rabbi, and he was teaching me what to read for my celebration, what to read, what to say, and prepare a speech. My bar mitzvah came. I went to synagogue happily, invited some friends, and we had a celebration. And I made a speech. I said, up to now, I've been a little child. Now I'm a man. So, 13-year-old man. And I commit myself to be more adult in every way. And I'm going to go to the synagogue at least once a week. Why do I bring that up? Because the next week I was ready to go to the synagogue. In Jewish religion, we celebrate each day with the evening first, then comes the daytime. Out of the Bible, there was evening and there was day, first day. And so Friday night starts our Sabbath. So I got dressed up and I had three sisters. One was 2 years older than I, and one was a year and a half younger, and one was a baby. So the one that was younger than me, a year and a half, I said, would you like to come with me to synagogue? Sure. So we went to the synagogue, and near the synagogue was my father's store. So we decided to go ask our father to close up the store and come with us to the synagogue. We went to the store. Our father said, as soon as this last customer leaves, we'll lock it up and I'll come with you. As a result, we were a little bit delayed. Now, synagogue was located on the northern part of the city square. City square was where everything takes place. Outdoor cafes, music, dancing, etc., etc. Our store was on the other end. So we started walking toward the synagogue, and all at once we hear screaming and yelling. And what was happening, people were coming out of the synagogue. As they were coming, the Italian military was hitting them with rifle butts and with punches and kicking them as they fall on the floor. And I was petrified. I didn't know what was going on. My father recognized some of these people that were being hit. So he took me and my sister by the hand, turned us around, and we walked all the way around the city and got back to our house, was on the other end of the suburbs in the city. Anyway, my mother was already worried because it took us quite a while to go around the city. And she said, what happened? We described what we saw, but we didn't know what happened. And we had two new rabbis. One was a single guy, and he rented the room near us. So we said, let's walk to his house and we'll see what he can tell us. We walked to his house nearby. He wasn't there. We waited for him. About 20 minutes later, we see him coming across the field. He's limping and he's holding a white hanky to his eye like this. And he told us, as soon as the service started, they're called carabinieri, the Italian military police came and says, service is over, everybody out. Who is going to argue with people with guns? So, okay, everybody started coming out. And the synagogue was at the second floor, and there were steps, wide steps leading to the square. And the Italian military formed a gauntlet along the steps, and as the people were coming out, they were being clubbed. I say clubbed, with the guns, butts of the guns that were being kicked down the steps, punched and all that. And as they got to the square, the quote party continued for them and people were being hurt. Well, we were pretty sad, petrified, didn't know what to think. Maybe Italians could turn to be like the Germans. Anyway, in the morning, my sister came to my room and said, let's go see what happened. As we walked on the square, there was a camera shop that belonged to the father of a couple of friends of ours, Jewish. The door was wide open and there was nothing on the shelves, maybe a couple of cardboard empty boxes. Then we walked to the square and there was a yellow band around an area and two carabinieri were walking up and down. We approached, we saw what was a sort of remainder of a big bonfire, and all the prayer books were strewn around there, some half burned, some torn, and our Torah, which is on parchment, and that was in the fire that had stopped burning by now. And we were sad. We didn't know what was going to happen to us. So we went home and told our parents. And knowing what the Germans were doing, that they picked first the men, and I was a man now. So my father bought two backpacks, one for himself and one for me. And we packed them with some supplies. In mine, I put an extra sweater, an extra pair of shoes, couple of shirts, underwear, socks, and some Zwieback. I think the military might know what Zwieback is. It's a hard, like a rock, and you eat it when you have nothing else. Anyway, so we put that near our house in the hallway, near the exit in the back, in case something happens that we have to quickly run. And life continued for about a while, and soon enough, one night, Saturday night, midnight, a big banging on the door. Mr. Danon, our name was Danon, and Mr. Danon was my dad. I was a kid still. Banging on the door and says, Mr. Danon, the Germans are coming. So there was a sign to us. We got up in a hurry. We said goodbye to my mother and one sister that was awake. And my older sister had already left earlier to the mountains where the resistance was forming. So that's where we went, toward the mountains. And as we were going toward the mountains were like about 12 miles away from our area. And German planes were flying overhead, some really low, and machine gunning anything that moved. We were running away, but also some other people who were not Jewish were also going to the mountains to join what we called the partisans. Resistance was partisans. They had started attacking Germans, Italian, and the Croatian collaborators. And we wanted to join them and be part of the resistance. And we went up the mountain. Eventually, we met up with some of the resistance people. And there was a group that we met up with. They interviewed us a lot because there was a lot of people that would join and then betray them. Anyway, so we joined them, and they say, hide during the daytime, hide anywhere you can. At night, we gather, and then you'll be informed what our activity is going to be. So the first night I heard the rumbling, I woke up, we were in the like bushes around. I woke up, my father also woke up, and they went under one bush. One guy was telling them they're going to be attacking a farmhouse of a collaborator. They needed food. So they went. I continued sleeping. In the morning, my father told me what they did. They had attacked this farmhouse. They burned some of it, and they took some bags of dry beans and macaroni, and that was their food for the next week or so. And the next night was a similar event, except now they were attacking a railroad crossing. And there was a kid about 12 years old in that group. I was about 13, maybe 13 and a half. And he'd been with them for a while. So they said, if he can help us, why can't your son, meaning to my father, meaning I should. I was happy to help. Then we went, and there was a river crossing. All you had to do is be able to make the switch in the track. And if we could do it quietly, fine. If not, then there was a little shooting. So my father was going to go with him, but the kid, he went, and they said, well, I have to go. So I went happily. There's only one person went to change the track. We came back. There was no shooting. You know, whatever happened, we were hoping that the train was derailed and whatever the resistance likes to do to the enemy. So we were there for a couple of nights and we had to move because the things were getting a little dangerous. Next attack was on the barracks of the Croatian. They were associated with Germans. They're sleeping barracks. So they gave me also hand grenades, Italian hand grenades hanging on my belt. The kid had 4 of them. They said, he will teach you how to use them. And we went there, we sort of everything quietly, we got around, and then the kid showed me how to work, make a hole under the barbed wire, sneak in, and I did whatever he told me. And we all threw our hand grenades, broke the window, threw them inside, and ran like anything back, and tried to get back to the same place. That wasn't always possible because everybody ran in different directions. And we were doing stuff like that every night. I had learned how to handle myself, lobbing hand grenades through the windows, sneaking out the wire. And this kid was really sharp when it came to that. He taught me everything I learned. Anyway, sometimes we would separate, and this is how I got separated from my father. And then I got separated from the other unit, but I found another unit, and we walked through the mountains of, Dalmatia was the province. I didn't know that such mountains existed. No roads, you just walk on the rocks, and pretty soon your shoes don't work anymore. And but you're with somebody else, they're doing it, so you're doing it. So that was my life. I met up with my father again, and then eventually we ended up on one of the islands, and we were stationed there. And they said, no more kids going out there. They put us in a machine shop. What did we do? Disassemble the guns and the other weapons and wash them down with turpentine and gasoline if you didn't have turpentine, and also blow so the coals will be hot, so the grown-ups can create a spring that would reject one bullet and replace it with another. The guns were not automatic in those days. Anyway, so I know I was working there. Then my father had a little, I guess, discussion with somebody. They told him that my father was responsible for food. And they told him that the bread they were getting was not up to the scale. And he said, well, come early, get your bread early while it's still damp. He wanted my father to get shot because he was, quote, stealing bread. Well, my father disappeared. I didn't see him for a long while after that. Then at that time, British and Americans had invaded Italy, and they recognized the value of the partisans, the resistance, and they started helping them out. They would come with their small, what they call little military boats, PT boats or something, bring food, uniforms, medical supplies, whatever they could. And they would come near the coastline, and then Morse code gives the sign that they're there. And we would row the boat to the PT boat, unload stuff on our little boats, take it back, while the Germans are shooting at us and the British. And when they're done, they would take off, go back to Italy. And I would go with them sometimes, help out. I was 14 by then, help out, carry the stuff from the British Army boat or Navy boat into the rowboat. And one time I did that and I was tired. They were still unloading. I sat on the bench in the British boat, and that's all I remember. Next thing, they're shaking me, and strange language talking, uniform people. What is it? I had fallen asleep and they had taken off. They went to Italy, and they don't know what to do with me. Luckily, I spoke Italian at that time, so one of the British people, they spoke Italian too, so they made me understand that they don't know what to do with me, and they'll get me to Italy and then bring me back next time. Well, I wasn't in the mood to come back. So they took me to Italy, and there was what they call a DP camp, displaced person camp in the vicinity of where was the British base. I could give you cities. Bari was the name of the city, but that was on the Adriatic. Americans were on the other side. They would be in Naples. So anyway, the British are gonna take me to the PT camp, DP camp, and leave me there. Okay. The DP camp was all Serbo-Croatian from Jewish immigrants who had gone to Split, and Italians evacuated them to Italy, at different places and throughout Italy. Anyway, this was, and they found one of the houses. These were rich people's villas. They couldn't come from the north to stay in their villas because of the war. So that's displaced person occupied those places. So they put everybody there. And it turned out there was one with 40 Jewish people, and they call themselves 40 Thieves, Alibaba and 40 Thieves. Yeah, because they had 40 people plus one guy in charge. So anyway, so they left me there. And soon enough, I recognized some people. Even my aunt was there among the refugees. So, okay, I'm not doing anything here. The war was over for me. So I'm walking down the street with a bunch of guys. We kicking the ball or whatever it was out of women's stockings. We made a soccer ball. We're kicking in the street. I see three guys walking down toward us on the street. I said, you know, one of these guys looks real familiar. So when they came close, I say, hi, Dad, what are you doing here? Yeah. And that was my reunion with my father. And we joined this group of the people that were the Jewish group. We joined them and we were with them for a while. And then at one point, the British started evacuating all the displaced people, displaced refugees. They started evacuating them to Egypt. They had created a tent city. El Shat was called. And by that time, they already had over 30,000 people living in these tents. And our turn was next. And my father says, I'm not going to Egypt. That's it. So he wakes me up that night before we were to depart, says, hurry up, come on, I have the carriage. I hired the carriage. We're making a quick getaway from here. So we got to the carriage, carried us to the train station. We took the train, took us to the nearest big town. Big town was called Lecce. The train for the other place, Bari, which had a lot of Jewish refugees there, had left 10 minutes earlier. So we couldn't make it. Oh, we're gonna sleep over here and go next day. And so we overslept every night. Train left at 5:30, we slept till 7, so we couldn't make that train. So we lived in this town called Lecce, which is head of the province. Anyway, so my father got a job working for the British American Command as a censor. They would open all mail, read it in what language. Okay, Italian, who knows Italian? Serbian, who reads Serbian? Croatian, and you read it and see if there's anything that would give away the American British positions there. So my father worked there, and he learned that American Congress and President had authorized 1,000 refugees from Europe to come to the United States. Oh boy, that's good. Who can go? They say just signed up. So we signed up, and I think another 15,000 other people did. We got accepted. At that time, we didn't know where my older sister was, where my mother and two other sisters were. And we were preparing to come to United States. The 2 weeks before the convoy was getting ready to leave to United States, or at least take us on board, we learned that my mother and two younger sisters were also in Italy in another camp. So we go to the authorities, we love to go to US, but can you take 3 more people? Oh, it's a big problem. Okay, then take us off the list. So discussion back and forth. They accepted my mother and two sisters. And we all got ready to go. They came with big trucks, loaded us up to Naples, and then we got on board ship. We got on board this one ship, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name. It was merchant marine ship. They were waiting for the whole convoy to form so we can start for United States. They assigned us quarters down half of the ship. We were to occupy, half was wounded GI returning from, at that point, they just had invaded Italy recently, and they didn't even invade Normandy yet. Well, they did while we were preparing. Anyway, so we were assigned quarters down in half of the ship. We all had, each individual had a hammock. There were 4 layers of hammocks. Mine was 3rd layer. I know, climbing up to the 3rd level, the guy on the 2nd level would always hit me or because I would disturb his sleep. Anyway, so the ship was loaded. We waited for the rest of the convoy. 4 days later, the convoy was formed. We had 4 either destroyers or whatever. They were going to defend the convoy. And we went from Naples toward Gibraltar, 2 days from Naples to Gibraltar, because German submarines were floating from Marseille, from France, and Italy, and that was dangerous. Anyway, we went out of Gibraltar. We didn't hit the high sea right away. We went hugging the African coastline. Nevertheless, the waves were pretty high. We eat good food on board the ship, and out comes everything in 10 minutes. I hate to tell you how it came out. Anyway, so after a while, the convoy turned around and headed to United States. And we went toward United States. We stopped off at Bermuda, and we went. It took us 15 days from Europe to New York Harbor, but it was worth it. And the 15 days we enter the harbor, and there's that big lady, Statue of Liberty. I was afraid the ship was gonna collapse, and everybody went to the side to admire this big lady with a freedom sign in her hand. Anyway, and then we watched the cars on the whatever parkway, on the Long Island Parkway, zooming by. There were red cars, blue cars, yellow cars, green cars. Whoever heard of this? We've seen cars, black cars. This was What a country, high rises and all that. We stayed in the harbor until the evening, and then it went to Jersey, something where Frank Sinatra was born. I forget the name. Valmont, something. Anyway, I forgot. And that's where they docked. We all came out. We went through the delousing exercise, and then they handed us our baggage, and we were tagged with different colored signs, our names on different colored sticker, and it says there, unassigned baggage. That was us. And they gave us Pullman trains. I know I slept real well there, private Pullman. And in the morning, they're knocking on doors, everybody out. The train left. We're out there, big water. What is this? Is this the ocean? What is it? It's not a river because much wider. Nobody knows. So one of the guys of the Pullman train says this is called Lake Ontario. Oh, okay. So later comes the military police, opens the barbed wire gate, everybody in, and then they close the gate with a big lock. Now you are in this military base, and you will be assigned your quarters, and you'll stay here until the end of the war. And we did that. We were assigned quarters. Everything looked fine, spick and span, military style. And there was 3 kitchens. One was kosher, the others are regular. And we lived there for the rest of the war. At that time, we couldn't go out. They couldn't understand the outside people, that they couldn't come in either. Anyway, we were assigned classes in the near school. I didn't know a word of English, so they put me in 6th grade. I was 14 and a half years old in 6th grade. The other little children like this. And after a month, I learned English. How did I learn it? The kids would make fun of me. That's the best teacher. Yeah. When they make fun of you, they send me to get electrons from another class, and the other teacher plays along with them, and everybody's laughing. And I learned what all that meant. Anyway, we started getting good grades, and okay, they moved me to 7th grade, from 7th to 8th, from 8th to 9th. And that's how we stayed until the end of the war. End of the war, they said, okay, people, it's been nice. Goodbye. You go. Where are we going to go? Said, I don't care. You signed that you would return. That was the condition Congress put. They would live in the United States segregated, and at the end of the war, they would go back to their own country. So my father says to them, well, pray tell me, what is my country? Which one? No country. And they didn't want me in that country. They didn't want anybody. Anyway, finally, they assigned people, Jewish organizations in different cities were going to help them find a place to stay and jobs. So they said to us, okay, you go to Dallas. And my dad says, Dallas, what is that? Says, that's Texas. Oh, no. says, I've seen cowboy and Indian movies. That'll help me, you know, that's dangerous. Well, where do you want to go? Want to go to big city? Okay, everybody wants to go to New York City. No. So what's the big city? Okay, Chicago. Chicago, Al Capone. Oh, you couldn't go there. They'll shoot me. So it says Philadelphia. He says to me, what is Philadelphia? Never heard of that. So we went to Philadelphia. Somebody met us at the train station, helped us find an apartment. It was what is now called Society Hill. But believe me, there was slum, first grade slum. Anyway, we lived there, and I got a job. Now I was 15, I could find a job. My two sisters went to their schools. They were younger. Okay, I finished. Yeah, anyway, so I just want to say I got a job in the evening. There were evening schools. There was standard evening high school. I remember that. I attended that high school. I graduated, and then I went to Knight University, Temple University in Philadelphia. I graduated from there. I met a lady. I married her. I had two daughters, and they're now in their 50s, and they have grandchildren. And I went to the military. Where else does a young man go, you know? And I went during the Korean conflict. I was there for 2 years. I explained to somebody, they got us on the ship, and somehow the ship took the wrong turn and took us to France. I had nothing to do with that, but the Korean War was ending at the time anyway. And that's the story of my life. And my poor wife passed away with one of the sicknesses I won't even mention. So anyway, I remarried my present wife. This is my pride and joy, 18-year-old Josh. And that was my story. By the way, when I came out of the Army, I got a job for the Army. I worked at there was in Philadelphia, there was a arsenal called Frankfurt Arsenal. I worked there for 3 years. Then I went to work for Army Audit Agency, and I traveled throughout the United States, visited 49 states. I skipped Honolulu by design, went to Japan, went to Europe, everywhere, and I had a good career. And then I retired. I'm now 95 years old. I was perfectly healthy until 2 months ago. Then something happened to my ear and my balance. And I'm trying to recover from that. And I thank you very much for listening to me. And have a wonderful life, everybody. Here's my ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Danon. At this time, we invite Mr. Krylon.
I can entertain questions if somebody.
Mr. Krylon and Colonel Justin Lancer to come forward and present Mr. Hannon with a certificate of appreciation from the Defense Centers for Public Health Aberdeen for serving as our guest speaker today.
All right, good afternoon, all. For those who don't know me, I'm Colonel Justin Schlancer, the Director for Defense Center for Public Health Aberdeen, the host for today's Holocaust Remembrance. This has been a moving experience for me, as I'm sure it has been for you. And it was a special honor to be here in the audience today and learn from Mr. Danon and his experiences as a young child during this tragic period in our history. But most importantly, also his continued dedication, not just to family, but also to his home and to his nation that he made a new home here in the United States. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Irvin Varconi, who is also here with us today. He is the son of Holocaust survivors as well, and is also associated with the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And he'll be here as well after the presentation today in our atrium just down the way for our presentation and poster presentation, which is just across the hall. On behalf of Team APG and also of those at Defense Health Agency Public Health, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to your organization's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Advisory Council for your hard work in ensuring today's Holocaust observance was a phenomenal event. Special thanks to our Public Affairs and Marketing Office, and a very special thanks to Mr. Doug Hall and Miss Allison Bruno for making this entire event possible this afternoon. And all of the soldiers supporting our program. Thanks again also to Sergeant First Class Joe Primo, the CCOM Military Equal Opportunity Advisor Program Manager, and the CCOM Protocol Office. As we leave today, may the stories and images we've seen be imprinted on you to ensure that we never forget. And thank you all for attending both here in person and online. Thank you very much. This concludes today's ceremony.
This officially concludes our observance as we go forward with renewed commitment to stand against injustices. We invite you to go to the seminar building next door to view our Holocaust poster exhibit and to speak with Mr. Irvin Varconi. Thank you.